I think what it really comes down to, we tend to have two work streams with our organization, but I like to think of it this way, is that we are trying to raise the baseline of animal welfare for those that are in the most intensively confined environments. So giving them a better life. So that would be things like going from cage to cage-free eggs. But really our North Star for our food system is a regenerative food system. And so that's returning animals back to the land, having a more localized food system, how food used to be raised 100 years ago, and really thinking more holistically about, again, reinventing who our neighbor is. If we think about the mycelium in the soil, and if we think about microbes that are talking to each other and engaging, and then we think about the water that's going into our food system, making sure that that's clean and healthy. All of these different levers and kind of our North Star for our food system is where I would love to see it go. And I think really connecting land, animal, and community within that framework is something that we want to see. The real challenge with this, though, is that we are a society that is focused on linear efficiency. So it's not so much how can we reinvent what profitable means? It's how can we make the most profit in the quickest amount of time? And that has led to a lot of destruction of ecosystems and rural communities and animals and humans as well, especially with health. So I think what we have to do and what we're called to do is think differently about how we measure success and profitability. And instead of thinking just linearly about a product along a supply chain, how can we think more circular and more regenerative? So thinking about the different life cycles of birth, growth, death, and decay, and how that also has religious connotations as well. And for me as a Christian, thinking about that in Christ's story of quite literally the resurrection and being reborn, there's something really powerful about that. And if we were to think about our communities and how we would be supporting our neighborhood, I don't know anyone locally that's growing livestock in my specific town. We always have to go out and source because we're just in a suburban setting. And that's a real problem if something were to happen with our national food shortage, which we experienced during the pandemic and having supply chain disruptions. People were running out of food and they weren't able to find things because of the efficient linear model of industrial agriculture. And it's not sustainable long term. And so we really have to think differently about this. And the good news is that there are leaders in this space doing this and putting animals back on land, seeing the power that we can with working more with nature instead of against it. It has a lot of really spiritual notions for me and how we can rethink our neighbor and redefine how we engage with our ecosystem. It's a really powerful tool. And there's a lot of regenerative farmers that are using livestock to rebuild ecosystems and seeing the benefit of not just financial profitability, but how can we measure success of people coming back and moving to the community? How can we measure human health impacts because the water is cleaner now because we're not using agrochemicals and pesticides and herbicides? There's all of these different elements of how we can measure success in that way that's much more cyclical and really holistic. And I think that that's a real invitation for us too, to think about these religious connotations with our food system and how we produce our food in a more holistic and sustainable way.